Ukraine didn't outrun Russian air defenses. It outlasted them. First, 20 decoy drones burned Panzer endurance. Then 4 AQ-400s slipped through a routine gate opening, guided by terrain recognition when GPS went dark, and punched Building 7's northwest corner with a 25-pound warhead that lit thousands of mines. At the same time, 2 drones over the Caspian ignited Makhachkala's catalytic cracker, pushing an inferno through nearby storage. Watch on, because the plan wasn't just destruction. It was doctrine shock, rerouted production, $2 million a month in shipping premiums, and a forced shift of air defense assets away from the front. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How do you hit a fortress without outrunning its guns? You starve them first. Saransk wasn't a soft target. It ran a layered routine. Pantsir S-1 batteries on concrete pads, a netted perimeter stitched with infrared sensors, GPS jamming up all night, and a gate protocol that forced human checks every hour. The Pantsir tracked fast and hit hard, but it carried only 12 missiles and needed a support truck to reload. That reload wasn't theater. Operators had to pause, cycle the rack, and come back online while the screen kept filling. The system could see several threats at once, but it could only swat a handful. That's the gap Ukraine aimed at. Not the radar, the endurance. Accuracy versus endurance defined the problem. Single shots don't beat a magazine that isn't empty. A saturation cycle does. So the first wave wasn't meant to kill. It was meant to be killed. 20 expendable drones pushed into the cone, each one cheap and noisy. They soaked radar time, forced short bursts, and dragged operators into a reload dance. Every intercept drained a tube. Every reload stole seconds that couldn't be bought back. Screens cluttered, comms spiked, and the crew rode a growing backlog while more blips stepped in range. While the decoys ate the clock, 4 AQ-400s came in low, following creek beds and rail cuts. Their firmware mattered. When the jamming hit, they flipped to terrain recognition, comparing live camera frames to preloaded map tiles, catching road crowns, tree lines, river bends. You can jam a satellite link. You can't jam a hill. Fog rolled across the fields and did the rest. The IR sensors around the plant were cheap commercial-grade units with a known weakness. Fog scattered heat signatures and dulled contrast. That wasn't luck. Planners had penciled in the weather window and waited. The human layer was next. A short, clean Russian-language radio call hit a captured Rosgvardia frequency at the exact moment a shift change usually clogs the entrance. New shifts stuck at the gate. Traffic's a mess. Open up. We're on a tight schedule. It fit a normal pattern, and normal is powerful under stress. With decoys still pinging the batteries, gate guards faced a simple choice that felt routine. They opened. The gate cycle created the softest path. The drones slid in as the barrier rose, low signature under the outer sensors and inside the net. Once past the threshold, the geometry flipped. Defenses pointed outward. Cameras had blind seams across loading bays and the angle of Building 7's northwest corner. The AQ-400s followed a preloaded arc to that corner, where storage racks ran tight and the wall tied into the roof truss. Each carried a 25-pound warhead with a hardened nose, tuned for overpressure inside the structure. The first detonation didn't just blast a hole. It hit sealed space, drove a supersonic pressure wave down the aisles, and hammered steel casings on nearby mines. Heat slid in behind that wave and pushed the filler past tolerance. Mines on the first row cooked off, and sympathetic detonation jumped row to row. The northern half of the hall went in one violent surge, then the next room lit as the wall failed. Assembly lines folded, conveyor motors tore off mounts, and dust turned to fuel in the air. When the echo faded, 70% of the plant was out. Primary storage and lines were gone. Structural integrity was shot. Accountants called it a $100 million write-off, but the bigger cost sat on a calendar. With the factory cold, mine output slipped from weeks to months. Just-in-time deliveries died, and the front would feel it. One hit crushed future mine output. The second hit reached for Russia's present fight, 1,200 miles away. What happens when the same night takes away tomorrow's mines and today's naval fuel? The answer starts on the Caspian, where Makhachkala's catalytic cracking tower did more than flare gas and hum at shift change. That 200-foot stack fed a pipeline of ship-grade fuel the Russian Caspian fleet counted on to sail, patrol, and refuel on schedule. Catalytic cracking breaks heavy fractions into lighter, cleaner products with heat, pressure, and a catalyst bed. Shut down that tower and you don't just lose throughput. You lose the blend that meets naval requirements, and the fleet starts living by tanker arrivals and borrowed capacity instead of a steady flow. The approach crossed open water. 2 Loitai drones flew high to save range, their profile larger on radar but efficient, riding thin air and long legs. Defenders faced an ugly geometry problem. A straight corridor over the Caspian with few choke points and a vertical target that cannot hide. Tall towers make maintenance easy and airflow reliable, but they also make an aiming post visible from miles out and fragile under blast. Crews had to watch a wide arc, thin out false positives over water, and still protect a column of steel that turns heat into fuel and keeps a fleet on a clock. The warhead choice flipped the risk for the site. Thermobarics are built for enclosed spaces and delicate infrastructure. First, a dispersed aerosol, then ignition. The resulting pulse heats fast, draws oxygen, and hammers with a sustained overpressure that plates and welds hate. Against a processing tower lined with catalyst and piping, the effect cascades. Valves warp, flanges shear, insulation ignites. If nearby tanks rupture, the vacuum-to-flame cycle feeds on fresh vapor and throws secondary fires across pipe racks, cable trays, and service roads. One wall of flame becomes an obstacle course for firefighters, turning minutes into hours while heat keeps eating the plant. This strike paired cleanly with Saransk. That hit froze future minefields by smashing the plant that stocked them. Makhachkala clawed at the present tense, sortie tempo and refueling windows for boats that need predictable turnarounds. Together, they pressed 2 time horizons at once, a 1-2 that forces planners to ration both production tomorrow and operations today. You can patch a line or borrow fuel, but you cannot run at pace when a refinery node goes cold and a factory sits dark. The money math stings because it's simple. Roughly $1.4 million went into the drone package arrayed across both targets. The direct losses sit near $100 million before anyone tallies weeks of mine delays, detours through secondary facilities, and premium transport to keep deliveries alive. Add those monthly premiums, about $2 million, and the return spikes towards 7,000% while the clock keeps billing. Cheap airframes trading for slow, expensive repairs is the kind of equation that changes habits. Those habits shifted fast. Moscow pulled air defenses inward to ring critical plants and depots, and every inward move comes off the front. Thinner belts mean longer reaction times, more seams between batteries, and better odds for follow-on strikes that don't need to be perfect, only persistent. Units at the edge get fewer interceptors and more orders to conserve shots. A quiet way of saying they're on their own more often. The logistics tail felt the squeeze next. Mine shipments rerouted through distant, less efficient sites, stacking delays into weeks. Rail slots grew tight. Truck legs stretched. Planners paid premiums to keep schedules from collapsing, and even that bought only partial relief. Rationing slips into the language when you can't fill every request, and commanders start picking sectors to favor. In the end, the double strike set a trap of choices: fortify industry and fuel lines, or keep the battlefield shield dense. Neither answer solves the other problem, and each day under that pressure invites more calculated hits. The message isn't destruction. It's leverage that lingers as teams reshuffle guards, repair crews, and morale. Paired strikes forced Moscow to guard the blade and the scabbard at once. Fuel for today's sorties and mines for tomorrow's trenches. That split focus drains interceptors, stretches crews, and turns routine maintenance into crisis management when plants run hot and depots sit exposed. Watch for the tell. Gaps at the front where batteries rotate home. Delivery times that slip, then slip again. Refinery repairs that miss windows and drift from weeks to months as spare parts and specialists bottleneck.